Al, the only real consensus, you talk to the executives who are in this lottery, is that this is probably the most unsettled first round since 2013. That was a draft where Anthony Bennett went number 1 overall, and the two best players in that draft, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Rudy Gobert, they went 15th and 27th. Executives in this room say that if they walk out of this ballroom today with number 1 overall, that they imagine they're going to seriously consider 4 or 5 different candidates for number 1 between now and the draft in Brooklyn in late June.
We love those kinds of storylines.
Welcome into the King's Court Live Edition. Ryan in Sacktown with you. It is Jerry Reynolds Tuesday. He's going to be joining us sometime after 2:15. I'm guessing he'll pop in close to probably 2:15, 2:20. So looking forward to that conversation as we do that every Tuesday here on the King's Court on If You Don't Like That. Happy to have you with me. We've got plenty of content today. You might notice the video's a little clearer. The audio might sound a little better. I'm in 1080p right now. You know why? We got a donation yesterday. Shout out to Steely Beats. That put us over the top to start doing some Ethernet things, getting stuff connected a little bit. Video glitches. I'd go back and watch it, and it was bugging me, so I know it was most certainly bugging you. Steely Beats, thank you so much. Donations on the channel, always welcome, but certainly not necessary. Your support is more than enough. I'm so happy to have you here with us today. You can call the show, so we're doing things different now. Nobody did it yesterday, but you can call the show, 916-399-3748. You can also text the show as well. The link is in the chat if you would like to call via video like we normally do. So that's how it sets up. That's the housekeeping. Let's get to the comments really quick. MC, love it, buddy. Thank you so much. Yes, please hit the thumbs up. It means a lot to us indeed. Yes, Mr. Reynolds. You love him. Uh-oh, BJ. Yeah, no, I love Jerry too. For as good as he is on the air, he's 10 times better off the air. And that's not just because we work together. That is Jerry Reynolds. I mean, he's like Sacramento's dad, isn't he? I mean, him and G-Man. So thank you, MC. Really appreciate it. Speaking of Grant, everybody, we have a busy day on If You Don't Like That. You get the King's Court Live right now. Then you get Grant, 5 o'clock, open forum show. And then 8 o'clock, we're going to come on shortly after the end of the Knicks and the Pacers. We'll talk about that one, and we'll be taking open forum questions as well. You can call, text this show. Let's get it. Yes, indeed, Condog. Progressive. Oh, you know it. He's coming in. He'll be coming in hot. If you have questions for Jerry Reynolds, put them in the chat. I'll try to get to them. John, what's up? I'm early. No detention. Yes, indeed. You made it in. Restream link is not working. Interesting. All right. Well, we'll put another link in the chat for you really quick, Condog. I know you like to call the video-wise and kick off the shows usually. So there's the link. Not sure why it's not working for you. Let's see. Jerry is epic. There's no doubt about it. Jerry loves talking with all of you. It gets him going, and it gets me going too. How special is it that we get to have Jerry Reynolds on the King's Court every Tuesday for the most part? and it's the off season. So I'm loving that. I've got plenty of content to carry us probably an hour and a half, 2 hours. You've probably seen some early mock drafts that have come out for the NBA draft this year, who the Kings might be looking at. We can go over a couple of those names that you might be seeing, specifically Isaiah Collier. I want to talk about him for a few minutes later today. Also, there was the player poll on The Athletic that came out maybe like 3 weeks ago. We've never gotten to it. I've teased it. So I want to get to that. They asked the players about most underrated player in the NBA, who should be the MVP, who do you least want to fight, those little things. So also, they talk about best buildings, worst buildings. It's funny that Detroit's Little Caesars Arena is voted, I'll give you that one, voted as the worst by the players. So we're going to go over some of these. And in fact, we'll get your guesses on them. Maybe you've seen the poll. I'll be able to tell immediately if you have. But yeah, let's kick that around. Let's talk about it. If you were watching the Kings Court last week, you know, and even the week before that, Tony Khan was really, really getting on my nerves. Good job by you, Tony. You've been laying out. You have not been bugging us lately. So really loving that. But you know who's starting to take that spot? Tom Brady. How about Tom Brady? You know, let's do this $20 million roast on Netflix Live. I'm going to be the voice of football over at Fox. He's going to be the number one guy, which I disagree with. That should be Greg Olson. But Tom Brady comes out, and I get his point. He said the roast affected his kids. Isn't that something you think about before you do a roast? I mean, also, when you do a roast, I mean, usually nothing is off limits, but if there's things that you wanted to be off limits, and that's probably the situation that Tom found himself in, right? Everybody wants to make the jokes about Giselle and his dating life, whatever it may be, the divorce, but maybe you say that's off limits. Maybe that's a good idea. She is the mother of your children, right? But then conversely, is there really a roast without that? Because then you've got the Kraft stuff. Kraft was pissed off because somebody made a massage joke. And then the Belichick stuff. I mean, maybe you get a little bit of funny stuff there. Tom Brady's 40, but what else are you going to joke around about? So I want to get to that. Zach Zarba, one of the officials last night in the Thunder Mavs game, had a pool reporter. He took some questions about a double dribble call on Jalen, well, not called on Jalen Williams. I want to talk about it just from this aspect. We're talking about the draft. We're talking about the lottery issues being broken. We know the Kings issues, right, with the referees. We know the league-wide issues with the referees in replay. And I think this is a huge, it's a bad veil, right? I mean, if an official is going to talk to the media. And I get this is a member of the media, but it's one media member that gets to go in there. And I don't know how the process works about the questions that get to be asked, or if there's, guidelines about what you can't talk about. But doesn't it just kind of feel weird to you that there's I haven't heard audio of it. You get transcript of it, but kind of like the NBA lottery. I mean, I guess it's done behind closed doors, right? It's just weird to me. So I think, again, Adam Silver needs to buckle up and do something. Oh, and by the way, 75 grand fine Rudy Gobert for making a gesture towards the officials. 75 grand, huh? Well, 100 grand gets you a heating pad that you throw on the floor. 75 grand, you can do whatever you want to an official besides contact them. And then Patrick Beverley, I talked about this the other day, 4 games for what he did. No way in the world. So with the Kings in the 13th pick, I played that opening audio from Woj. That was the night of the draft lottery when the order was announced. And there isn't really a consensus top guy in this draft. Sarr seems to be the name being thrown around the most. And also, I have an update from the combine day one, guys, where they think stock rose and stock went down. Day one was really about measurables. They did a lot of shooting, and then there was some mild scrimmaging. So today they've been doing some more scrimmaging. I've had my eye on that. We'll talk about some of the losers and winners, but really what I want to talk to Jerry, I want to get his peace of mind from a coach and GM perspective about how the Kings approach this. You know, are you taking the best player available, or are you taking the best player that fits your need? And we know what the needs are. It's point guard. That's why I picked up on Isaiah Collier from USC. He's an aggressive point guard. 3-ball percentage certainly needs some work. He knows the pick and roll game. So I think that although experience is limited, only one season at USC, he seems to be pretty ready for plug and play in terms of somebody that can have a high burn rate on the ball, can play a little bit off the ball. But the question becomes, are you getting maybe a Davion Mitchell 2.0, right? And there's nothing wrong with Davion Mitchell. I thought that he excelled at the end of the season. Maybe you could go as far to say he showed you more at the end of the season than he had in his entire tenure here in Sacramento. So we will talk about that with Jerry. But first, as always, this guy kicks it off. Condog, welcome to the show. By the way, if Jerry Reynolds shows up, you're getting bumped. I'm just letting you know right off the top, buddy, but we can come back to you later. Condog, going once, going twice. Condog, really? Should we just leave it like this? This guy, do you guys know what would happen on shows if you did this? You call in, you leave your office. I mean, I get that, like, you can be on hold for a national show or whatever, but there's no video. You just empty seat us, Condog? What's up with that? Is he trolling us right now? He might be trolling us. I'm going to take him down for the second, and we'll check back in with Condog here in a few minutes. 75 here with us on the King's Court, or at least have checked in to the King's Court live today. Thank you so much for being here. Full day of programming. Read the scroll below. Grant's going to be on at 5 with an open forum show, and then we will be doing a playoff kind of post game, but also, you know, it's going to be more of an open forum as well. We call it a scrum. You guys can ask whatever you want. Let's get back to the comments since Condog is MIA. Appreciate all the comments. Again, you can text the King's Court 916-399-3744. You can call that number too. Now, if you call that way, here's what's going to happen. We only have one line. So if you get a busy signal or we don't pick up, that means that you got to keep trying until somebody's off. Now, if the phone does pick up and you just hear some air and maybe you hear me, hang on there. I will be coming to you, okay? So know that you are the only person on hold if you do call, and we do not have a screener, so you guys know the rules. I trust you. That's why we do video here all the time. And by the way, Steely Beats, thank you so much. I can already tell the difference in this internet quality right now with the Ethernet connections and adapters we needed to get. So Steely Beats, thank you for the super chat yesterday. Everything goes back into the King's Court, as you see here. All right, back to the comments. You know what? Let's put them on the spot.
Yeah,
dude. No. None of this. More like this. You come on the King's Court and you just leave your seat for like 30 seconds. I mean, what's going on, dude?
Man, I had to take care of something, man.
Oh, okay. You had to take care of some of my business. Hey, all right. What's up, Condog? How you doing today?
So, I guess my thing I want to ask about is with the whole JJ Redick rumors to the Lakers, and I just don't see the appeal of leaving, a pretty good gig that he has at ESPN just to, go coach LeBron and very good chance of, just getting the finger pointed at you, blamed, kicked out. Like, I get it, the Lakers, it's the Lakers, but coaching LeBron or a Kevin Durant, you're going to get the finger pointed at you a lot if you lose.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, everything that LeBron James does is extremely calculated, right? So the fact that JJ Redick had a successful podcast on his own, he didn't need LeBron James to get views. So they start their thing. I don't know. To me, it's more of a public thing. Like, this is my guy unofficially. The best thing for the Lakers, I believe this: player, coach. Put it on LeBron. And I bet the franchise would be totally fine with that because he's already doing all that right now behind the scenes. It's just now he would be the fall guy. Does LeBron want to be a fall guy?
Yeah, instead of just making him, make him just more than just a figurehead, like the coach, because the current coaches, they're almost like the figurehead when they're coaching LeBron or GMs. But if you want to just make him, just put it out there, like, no, this guy actually runs the show. I think it would definitely be worth it to try it, just because at this point we know LeBron's always like, this is my guy, or, oh, this Rich Paul guy comes here,
Yeah.
It would definitely be a breath of fresh air to me instead of, Palpatine behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what it is, right? Wouldn't you look at LeBron a little bit differently if he took responsibility sometimes? The temper tantrums, it's a natural thing as a player. It's an emotional game. Everybody that's played at any level knows that. But like, when you're LeBron James and you do something like that, those things, I'm not going to say they're definitely not planned, but it shows the level of collaboration to me between the coach and the player. That tells me they're on completely different pages.
And and honestly, a lot of the coaches that have been fired under LeBron have been very successful coaches, championship level coaches. I mean, Mike Brown's one he left, Spoelstra's one he's left, Vogel's very good. But he's had some great coaches. Like, they know basketball.
They do know basketball. So look, LeBron's a different animal. I don't want to make it out like he's, the worst uncoachable guy in the league, but with him comes a lot more than basketball. It comes business. You don't think he wants a piece of, or at least a seat at the table in the business conversations of how the Lakers market him, how they market other players. It's written all over the franchise. If LeBron wants something, the franchise does it most times. So, let LeBron do it. Now, it'll be interesting to see, because I do agree with you. Now, if Redick wants to get into coaching, it's a great opportunity. Not a better opportunity to take, because the Lakers aren't that far away. I thought the Lakers played really well in that first round series, although the series doesn't show it. They just blew a lot of leads, but they played Denver well. Was it a byproduct of Denver just not playing great basketball? Possibly, because we saw that roll into the Minnesota series, the first two games. But you bring JJ Redick on, he gets all the attention. You're on national TV all the time. But what's going to happen the first time him and LeBron have a disagreement, right? We've seen this story a million times. I would love to spend 30 minutes with Mike Brown asking him about his time around LeBron.
Yeah, that would honestly be a very good insight right there. And then obviously, if your head coach is, also one of the top podcasters, who knows if he just starts blowing everything up on the podcast.
Yeah, could be. I mean, there's all these things. I'm sure the podcast would probably go out the window at that point, because JJ is going to have enough media requests and a media availability where the last thing he's going to want to do is to put a microphone in front of him, or in front of himself if he doesn't have to. But keep an eye on the situation. I mean, as it develops, it's really interesting, and the whole narrative of the NBA. I'm not going to say the NBA, but definitely the media really covering what Bronny's doing at the combine. Bronny shot the ball well yesterday. Well, I sure as hell hope he did. I mean, he's wide open. He's supposed to be a pro.
It's the combine.
Yeah, it's the combine. So, and I know he didn't look terrible in some late scrimmages I believe he played in.
I think he scored a couple points in one of them.
Yeah. So, you're going to keep hearing that noise. Bronny should not be drafted. He will be drafted. And he definitely second, like Mr. I don't mean to call him irrelevant. I think it's amazing he's worked his way back to where he's at now. And I think you also have to realize, Condog, trying to separate yourself from your dad, that's a really hard thing. Everybody's talking about LeBron wanting to play with his son, being the first one in the NBA to do that at the same time. But what about Bronny? Does he want to do that? Does he want to be his own person? I mean, so there's a lot that goes into it, but definitely keep an eye on what happens in LA. It will set the tone for the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, it was good talking with you. I'll let you go now so you can prep for Jerry, and I'll be still here.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thanks for the call, Condog. All right, that's Condog coming in, kicking us off today on a Tuesday in the King's Court. By the way, Adam, are you in the house? Adam, let me know if you're in the house. I haven't seen anything from you in the chat. I had an idea for you that I think you would have really liked. Condog brings up some good points about JJ and LeBron. I mean, LeBron's going to make that choice. I guess the question becomes, what kind of money are the Lakers going to want to pay JJ? And I get and JJ is a brilliant basketball mind. I take nothing away from him there, but it's the Steve Kerr thing, right? Steve Kerr, is he going to be a good coach? Will it work out? And guess what? Excels. I think Kerr's done a really good job. Granted, he's had very good pieces to work with, but LeBron, Bill Russell, player coach, do it all day. My buddy, if you guys want more on the Lakers situation, go to the King's Court. You can go to my Twitter page. That will get you the link to Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. Had an amazing conversation with my boy V in the Fee. Believe it or not, it is the third most downloaded episode now. And by the way, I think I mentioned it yesterday. Thank you so much. The King's Court is, and I know it's not a big deal, but domestically on the iTunes chart, under the basketball category, we're 237th. That's pretty cool. Philippines, 133rd under the basketball category. So I am loving that. But V and I, we sat down. V and I are actually pretty good friends. Yes, he is a jungle guy. He was in the Smack Off last year. But he is also a Lakers enthusiast. This dude knows the team inside and out. Sometimes in the jungle, clones get matched up by their cities with teams, or if a team comes up that's in that city, sometimes that clone will usually come up in terms of like what Jim does with his take, or what the clones do with their tweets and emails. And inevitably, every single time the Lakers come up, you're going to hear V's name at some point, whether he calls in or Rome starts talking about him. Same kind of thing started happening with me and the Kings. It's kind of funny now that Rome's not on the airwaves in Sacramento, but he gets a lot of mileage out of this little laugh that I didn't plan to do. I had no idea that I was doing it. It was just one of those things. And those sometimes are how the best moments happen on radio, TV, etc. But go check that episode out, because we talk about the rivalry too, about the Kings, or with the Kings and the Lakers. Can it be rekindled? What's that going to be like? So again, a lot of good stuff and a lot of good content. You can call the show, although we're expecting Jerry Reynolds any minute, so you might wait on hold for a second. Here's what I want to get into while we wait for Jerry. And thank you to everybody being here. 107 have checked in so far on X or YouTube. We appreciate the love. But I want to talk about this player poll that came out in The Athletic. So it was published on April 22nd. So it's been out there for a while. I had been wanting to talk to all of you about it. It did come out prior to the MVP voting and such. So they give you some quotes of some of the guys that want to put their name to their vote if they had a strong opinion about something or wanted to show somebody some love. but there's other votes that there's no opinion attached to it. So let's just start off the top. Who's the MVP? There was 141 player votes casted, and it went like this. Jokic, 41.8% of the vote. And let's be clear, this is the NBA players, their peers, voting on this. SGA, 36.9%. Luka, only 9.9%. Tatum, 4.3%. Giannis, 1.4%. And Donovan Mitchell, 1.4%. So the love for Jokic is league-wide. They certainly appreciate his game and how he's changed that position to a degree. And one of the words that kept coming up from the players in this is consistency. And that's another word you hear all the time with Domas, consistency. Now, just because those two are probably two of the best right now in the NBA at that center position that play different. I'm not talking about your rim protectors. I'm not talking about your lob guys. I'm talking about basically point centers. You know, sometimes in Sabonis's case, he's a little bit undersized, but I read a lot of these quotes that the players gave about Jokic, and some of it certainly is transferable, or you could make an argument that those same things apply certainly to Domantas Sabonis. Now, who is the best defender in the NBA? Get your chats in. Who do you guys think the players voted as the best defender? This one really, really surprised me. Tell you what, I'm going to give you some names, and I'm not going to give you any specific order. Here you go. Rudy Gobert, Alex Caruso, Jaden McDaniels, Kawhi, Isaac Okoro, Jonathan Isaac, OG Anunoby, Jaylen Brown, Wemby, Drew Holiday, Lou Dort, Herb Jones, pretty much all of them for the most part. Bam's in there. Jalen Suggs is in there. Dre is in there. Draymond Green. Who do you think the NBA players voted in as the best defender in the NBA? Going once, going twice. Bang! Bang! Victor Wembanyama? What? Best defender? I mean, longest defender. I mean, most difficult to probably play against, but those are all physical attributes. Is it Victor's defensive game or just his size that got him up to number one in the players' opinion? He got 15.2% of the votes. Now, we're going to get some Sacramento Kings stuff in here, so hang with us. 112 here on the Kings Court, or at least have checked into the Kings Court. Ryan in Sacktown with you. I better check my phone, make sure we don't have any issues from Jerry. We do not. We are good to go still, because Condog got me a little worried when he said that link was not working. Jerry Reynolds joining us for Jerry Reynolds Tuesday here in a little bit. If you have any questions for Jerry, throw them in the chat right now. We are currently talking the NBA players poll that came out in late April, voting on various categories about their peers. Wemby, the number one defender, according to the players that were asked. Now, for me, I for sure thought Drew Holiday would be the one, but he only got 12.9% of the vote. So we will continue talking about this in a little bit, but as promised on Tuesdays, you know, that's why all you're here, right? I mean, all the love is for Jerry, and he joins us for Jerry Reynolds Tuesdays. Jerry, what is up, buddy? How you doing?
Good. Yeah, you know, I need some love. Yeah, give me a quart of love to go, or whatever. I don't know.
There you go. A quart works.
I mean, works. Yeah, you don't need it. I don't need a half gallon. A quart will do.
I love how you think of other people, Jerry. That is the best thing about you. So how's it going? How's the week been in terms of watching the playoffs? Anything jump off the page to you since we last spoke?
Well, I mean, obviously the playoff defense is so much tougher. You know, I mean, the physicality of it, I've really enjoyed it from that standpoint. You know, it does seem like a couple of things, especially with the Pacers and the Knicks series. I think without OG Anunoby, I don't think the Knicks really have much of a chance. Truthfully, they're down 3 of their top 8 players. And I mean, Brunson and DiVincenzo and Hart have been spectacular, but
Yes.
I just don't think they can continue. And I mean, and the Pacers have such great depth, and now that Halliburton is really playing like the all-star that was expected, which most of the early part of the year, and the injuries kind of set him back, but he's been terrific. But the depth of the Pacers, so I think that I kind of think that playoff has changed, and I just don't see how the Knicks can win it. I mean, I admire the heck out of them.
Yeah, they're playing their hearts out.
They're
doing what they
giving
can.
everything. If there's ever a team that gives everything they've got, and then some of the media pundits talking about, well, Tibbs plays his players too many minutes. It's like, well, who else you gonna play?
Exactly right. What's your line? You can't play everybody, or
well, you can't play everybody. In their case, they don't have anybody else.
Yeah, exactly right.
They don't really, have enough NBA players as it is. That's healthy.
Good point. There's another guy to me. Halliburton gets a lot of the run, but I feel like we're seeing Miles Turner take that next step in front of our eyes. What are you seeing from him, and how effective has he been against the Knicks, in your opinion?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the Pacers style of play really helps Miles. And I think credit Rick Carlisle for, opening their offense up. He's never been that good a half-court player, but I think in transition, he's getting a lot of open threes and, some easy scoring opportunities. And then he's always been a good shot blocker. So, yeah, I mean, I think the style of play and really with the depth they have, he doesn't have to play huge minutes. I think all those things have helped him. And one other player on that team, TJ McConnell.
Oh my
I think
gosh.
that guy, I mean, he may be every bit as important as Halliburton to that team in his own way. I mean, that guy comes in, and every minute he plays, he seems to make his team better.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you this. If TJ McConnell would have been on the Kings this year, regardless of if Monk was hurt or not, how many wins better would they be?
They'd be better.
Yeah.
They'd be better. It's hard to say, but they've been better. I mean, would they have been 2 games better? Or at least. I just think, the fiery bulldog and productive player that he is would have had a real impact beyond talent. So, yeah, they might still be playing.
Watching him, we've talked a lot about guys stepping out of a time machine and into this day and age in this type of NBA, but he is just such a throwback point guard, Jerry. He's aggressive. He always wants more. Like, I feel bad saying like Stockton, but he plays that physical type of game.
He does. He's kind of a junior John Stockton. He probably, I wouldn't say clearly he's not that good, because
Sure.
Stockton did it for 15 years, and TJ is in a more limited role, but in a limited role that he has, he's about every bit as productive. But your analogy's right on. I mean, you think of Stockton because of the impact he has, the toughness, hard screens, keeps his dribble alive, finds cutters, will take open shots and make them, doesn't really force anything. A winner. That's what I say.
Just makes the team better. We're going to talk about the Kings in a few minutes, but I do want to get to this series first, Jerry. The Timberwolves and the Nuggets, the Nuggets run off a couple games, headed back to Denver. What's your confidence level on this Timberwolves team, and what's changed in the series?
I think they woke up the Nuggets.
You said that last week.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know the Nuggets would be able to go in there and get to, it's like a lot of people. That was such a dominant beatdown in Denver that I really thought the series was going to go Timberwolves. But, I've always believed in the old Rudy Tomjanovich statement. Never doubt the heart of a champion.
Sure.
And, and I think Denver has that. But, I mean, Minnesota is capable of winning the series, but I also think I would kind of lean toward Denver right now. I mean, it seems like Jamal Murray is healthy, and that's such a big part of, Joker's Joker. And then getting the kind of performance they're getting from Gordon I
Yes.
think is just such a bonus. Really, he's coming into his own now. And then the bench has been so much better. I thought in those first two games, and I think they have a thin bench, but the guys they have all been productive. So I think that's a real key for Michael Malone. I mean, you've got to keep Murray, and his starting five is better than Minnesota's. But so if they just get a even break on the bench, they're probably going to win.
It's a great point. Jerry Reynolds joining us live on the King's Court. Jerry Reynolds Tuesdays, which everybody loves and we look forward to. You're getting the love right here. Getting a message there. Sorry about that, Jerry legend. Jerry. Look at you. You're getting more than a quart, Jerry.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I have to give something back, won't
I? No doubt. All right.
Definitely.
Well, let's go to the Kings. So the Kings are picking 13th and 45. This draft seems to not necessarily have a consensus number one. Some people are saying SAR. I think 13th is exactly where you want to be in a draft like this. How about you, Jerry?
I think it's a great spot. I think it's going to turn out to be a solid draft. I mean, the difference is there's no number one for sure. It's not. There's going to be some all-stars in this draft. It may take 2 or 3 years like it always does. I mean, but I always say the 13th pick, it's almost a no-pressure pick. But look at all the great players taken at that spot or lower, like Karl Malone or John Stockton, Antetokounmpo.
Yep.
I think
Kawhi
Leonard was taken but lower, Jimmy Butler. And then, of course, in the second round, guys like Jalen Brunson and Nikola Jokic. So it's more who you pick, not where you pick. And I think they've got a chance to get somebody that can really help them. Now, will it be the ideal guy? Will he immediately be a difference maker? Well, that's probably a stretch. But they got Tyrese Halliburton with this 12th pick a few years ago.
Yeah.
And and of course, Domas, when he came out, he was like an 11th pick or 12th pick, something like that, too. So, no, I'd be very positive about that pick. I think there's, not that I've followed the draft that much, but there's certain guys I see that are listed in that range that I happen to watch on TV. You don't think they'd be awfully good players with the Kings.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we go through the draft process, we'll continue breaking those players down here on the King's Court. I guess the question for you, your GM hat, your coach hat, we know where the holes are on the roster for the Kings. They need a backup point guard. They absolutely do. They need a 3-and-D wing. I know these guys don't grow on trees, but Jerry, with this crossroad off season, the Kings are looking at, are you drafting best available or best at the need that you have?
Well, I think you should always draft best available because even if if he's a player, you've got an asset you can always trade. Now, I mean, but then at 13, for instance, it could be that you'll have 2 or 3 guys you like there, and you're not sure who's the best player available, and one fits your need more than somebody else. Well, then you take, that's when you kind of change your philosophy. But I always say, that's where all the mistakes are made, where you basically say, well, we need a point guard, and then you pass on a guy who becomes an all-star 2 guard.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
And it's like the old Portland Trailblazer thing when they needed a center, and they took Sam Bowie, and they didn't need it. They didn't think they needed an off guard because they had Clyde Drexler, and they passed up a guy named Michael Jordan. Well, it would have worked better had they just, it might not have worked great the first year, but you certainly could have traded Drexler for something better than the way Bowie turned out.
Yeah, no doubt. So the Kings have the 45th pick too. I looked to the Warriors. They did really good last year in that same neighborhood. With the new CBA going into effect and a premium being on those 4 years that are a set scale of pay for the first round picks, would you be disappointed if the Kings parlayed that first round pick and maybe something else to make a move for a veteran or somebody else already in the league.
Oh, not at all. I mean, to my mind, if it's a young veteran, I
Mhm.
mean, somebody that fits the timeline, a 25, 6, 7-year-old player would be fine, because you're looking at a guy that should have 7 or 8 years left. And nobody should look further down the road than that in the NBA. So, yeah, I think it'd make perfect sense if Monty sees a guy that he could take the pick and a player to get a player that, that really fits a need and
Yeah.
is more of a sure thing. I mean, I always say, 1 year goes back to when I traded the third pick, basically Billy Owens for Mitch Richmond. Well, a third pick, there wasn't a third pick that was anywhere near as good as Mitch Richmond. And so,
Yeah.
and Mitch was, he was 22 or 3,
Young.
So, that to me, that's exactly what they ought to be. You're not going to get Mitch Richmond, but something, if you could take the pick and something and get a young guy. I always say there's always some guys available. I mean, Larry Markkanen is a great example. He was drafted 8th or 10th by Chicago, a little slow coming around, moved to Cleveland, starting to get it. They gave up on him. Now he's in Utah. Now he's kind of a franchise guy.
Great.
Well, that's what you're kind of looking for, a guy that's getting ready to take that next step. The Kings were awfully good at that years ago, getting Doug Christie at the right time, getting Bobby Jackson at the right time. They'd bounced around several teams. And, so that's really the steps, that's what the Kings, to make that next jump, they almost got to catch it right with a young player that's getting ready to be what he should be.
Absolutely. Great point by Jerry Reynolds, joining us for a few more minutes here on the Kings Court Live. I've been making or trying to draw a line or explain the difference between drafting a guy that's done a year in college versus a guy that's played out his full eligibility by the time they get drafted. Jerry, how big is the difference when drafting a player that's played out their eligibility, like a Keegan?
Yeah, I mean, I think Keegan. I mean, I kind of like the 3-year players, because you pretty much. I mean, because now you have something to gauge. Did they get better each year? Okay,
yes.
Because just because a guy looks good as a freshman doesn't mean that's where some of the you're always talking about. Well, this guy, look at the top end, how good he's going to be, and how many the Ben McLemores or Willie Cauley-Steins.
Thomas Robinson.
Thomas Robinson. Well, there's every reason. Yeah, if they'd have continued to improve at the same rate, but they didn't.
Yep.
And as opposed to maybe a guy that you had a better track record of, and I think too, we so often say, well, geez, a guy's 22 years old, and as opposed to a 20-year-old. It's like, wait a minute. If he's good, he'll have 10, 12 years in the league. Why would you look further down the road than that? Because because a guy's 2 years younger, well, you may not be able to keep him anyway. I mean, in today's game it's a thing that you can't be sure that whoever you get, whether they're 20 or 22, you're going to have in 7 or 8 years anyway.
Exactly.
So you're worrying about something, that's the paralysis by analysis. You're worrying about something that probably isn't important.
Yeah, no doubt. And good point there. I like that. I guess, does the game slow, or do you think the game slows down a little bit quicker for those guys that are 3-4 year guys in college once they make the transition to the NBA?
I do, because they, if they've been in and played at a top level,
sure,
played at a top level, then they're playing against some pro level players. I always say, I think I said once it might have been on with you. It's like, Kentucky. Well, they've been disappointing as a team, but they're playing against lottery picks in practice.
Yeah.
I mean, just look around the league, and they've got 2 guards that's going to go probably in the top 8 this year. So if you're getting a guy from the Big Ten or SEC, they're going against not just good players in games, but they're going against some NBA potential players in practice. So there's a lot to gauge.
Yeah, and in practice, you actually practice. In college, you're running, you're doing scrimmages.
And really, college coaches can put more. Well, they used to put a little more pressure on guys than pros can. I'm not sure they can now because of transfer portal. If somebody gets their feelings hurt, they might leave. They'll leave. So that's
Exactly.
probably changed.
College basketball has never been closer to pro basketball. It's never been closer with the transfer portal, NIL. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad? Do you see it as good? Both?
Huh?
Yeah. Do you see it as a good thing or a bad thing?
I like the idea that players can transfer because they if coaches can leave, they should be able to leave, and I think they should get paid more because if you pay coaches $8 million in so-called amateur basketball, you can certainly take care of the players. They're the ones that's responsible for. Having said that, I've got bear me out here, but I think the transfer portal, they should have one transfer allowed unless they're there when also a coach is fired or leaves. Then they could have another one. But that would be the only time you could transfer more than once is if the coach that recruited you also leaves. I think that would be much better control of it. And then on the money stuff, I really think the college, they've got to come up with kind of a salary cap.
Sure.
Because, I mean, where all the SEC teams, and certainly in football, drives everything, but just have a cap that Alabama has the same amount to spend on players as Georgia and as LSU, in the same way in basketball that Duke and Kentucky have the same amount to spend as does University of Colorado. And at least now, some guys that probably could get more, but it's way better than it was before, and there'd be some controls of it. And I just think they've got to get to that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that means the NCAA, which at this point, I don't know what they do anymore with the conferences handing out punishments and, making all the changes. But they'll have to dig their hands in. Jerry, before we wrap up, Baki wanted to come on and ask you something or talk to you really quick. So, Baki, the floor is yours.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Baki.
What's up, buddy?
Do you hear me, guys? Because internet connection seems like
I hear you great. Hear you great.
Oh, great.
Gotcha.
So first of all, thank you for having me in the conversation, and very glad to sharing the moment with Jerry, especially right now, of course, with you. So, what's up, Jerry? How are you?
Good. Love seeing you again. Getting to be like old friends, I guess.
All the way across the world.
I'm very glad to hear you. So maybe you don't know, but I'm not in the playoffs this year because you know what happened with the Kings. So I took a timeout. So I'm gonna take next season on. So, but I will like to hear you. What do you think about this situation, particularly now with the we have Denver back in the game? So, what do you think? What do you two guys think about Denver chances in eventual playoff finals? I mean, Western finals and maybe NBA championship finals. Do you see them having better chances to repeat now or last year when they take it for the first time?
Well, I was a little surprised last year, because obviously they'd never done it. So, the fact that they went all the way and proved to be the best team. I mean, I think they're the best team right now. Now, I don't know if they can get through Minnesota, but in my mind, it's a series they could lose. But I think if they beat Minnesota, I honestly think they'll beat either Oklahoma City or Dallas. And I really think they're better than Boston, who's likely to come out of the East. I just think they're so well coached. And with Jokic and Jamal Murray, they've probably got the best combo two players in the league, and their starting five, they just fit, you know. So I don't know if that's answered your question. I mean, I would not be surprised at all if they win the World
Absolutely.
Championship.
I just curious if you see them more likely to win. Maybe okay. Let's say they will maybe play in the championship playoffs and finals. So do you have Denver bigger chance to repeat in the championship finals, or the last year when they entered the finals? Which one of those two series are more likely for you to? Okay, last year we saw what happened, but what do you think?
Yeah.
It's gonna be easier now or maybe harder for them?
Well,
Hey,
I
Baki,
think
really
it'll be
quick.
harder. It'll be harder. I mean, you know, just because they're not playing the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat really aren't nearly as good as the Boston Celtics. So to get the same thing done, it's going to be harder, and the West is much harder. So it'll
Okay.
be harder, but then again, they're more prepared for it. You know, they've been there, they've done that. They know what it takes. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think they're more prepared for what challenges they'll have. The difference is the challenges they have are a lot tougher.
There you go. I love it, Baki. Thank you so much for chiming in and bringing up some good questions about the Nuggets for Jerry.
Thanks, you guys, and have a good day.
Thanks. Take
All
care,
right,
Mike.
thanks, Baki. Sorry
Yep.
to step on you there. I was just gonna have him take it off the air because I know your time is limited and
Well, that's
value.
okay. No, you know, I got a few more minutes. If something you got something on your mind, you know.
I got one more thing on my mind.
Okay.
You have lived basketball, you've lived the NBA. What is wrong with the NBA draft lottery, if anything, and what would you do to fix it?
You know, I actually like it.
Okay.
Because what they've done, and they did it for this very reason, what happened this year, that tanking, it makes no sense to tank.
Yes.
You know, that, and I think that's good. You know, I mean, fans deserve teams trying to win. And certainly the way it played out, you know, with the worst team in the league getting the fifth pick. So obviously there's no advantage to being the worst team. And
Yeah.
and even last year, you know, the Spurs got Wembanyama. They didn't have the worst record,
They did not. No.
and so often that's been the case. I mean, when they got Tim Duncan, they didn't have the worst record. So it's a lottery, and you know, years ago when they didn't do that, that's, you know, when Houston got Ralph Sampson and then Elijah, you know, they truly tanked.
Yeah.
And that's disgusting. You know, I mean, it really, it's, you know, anyway. So yeah, I'm old school. I think everybody ought to just go ahead and try to win their games. And then, you know, and if you're really a dog team that's losing, why should you be rewarded?
There you go. And I guess the CBA too, that's going into effect this next operating year, it's aimed at trying to balance that out, at least with in-season and off-season acquisitions for the small markets. But I don't know. I guess there's an argument there that I guess you need to see more of the 65 game rule, right, Jerry? Did it have a big enough effect this year? Was it an outlier? Or is that going to keep rolling over? Because I think that's the big unknown to me. Because if it's working, then why not go to a system where the worst gets the first pick and the best gets the last?
You could do that. I mean, I you know, here again, I think you'd have to put some real strict requirements. In other words,
Yeah.
I'd have no problem if, in fact, you could keep teams from tank. In other words, and that's the injury thing. You know, the so-called flu-like symptoms, back spasms,
Yes.
tight calf, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I think the NBA would have to have their own set of doctors fly in to check guys out, because you'd have to protect the league from teams that, you know, I hate to say this, but there's guys who would try to take care of advantage of the rules. I know that's a
Of
surprise.
course.
And so, yeah, because you'd like to see the bad teams have a chance to get better, and they do. it's like Detroit. How many? They've probably had 7 or 8 lottery guys on their roster, and they're still terrible. Well, they're picking bad.
Good point.
At
It's a
some
great
point,
point.
as opposed to look at Denver. I mean, Jokic was the 41st pick. I think Jamal Murray was the 5th pick. But Gordon was traded. Now he was a lottery pick, but they had to trade to get him. And
Yep.
Kendavius
From
Caldwell
Orlando.
Pope was I think they traded to get him. Michael Porter Jr. was a 14th pick.
They gambled on him, remember?
They
with the back
gambled big
injury.
time on him. Yeah, they basically had about 2 years. They got nothing out of him because of all of his back problems. So, it's the old thing is, do you give bad teams and franchises players, or do you, reward franchises that do it right?
Sure, sure.
I mean, and I think for years we saw, Utah and San Antonio, small market teams, and of course Kings had their period where they did things right, and as opposed to it wasn't about getting the first pick, it was about doing things right, using the whole gamut of drafting well for whatever spot you're in, trading well, using free agent, successfully when you could. And I mean, it's a combination of all that. And I think the Knicks are another example to their credit. They traded to get Brunson. They traded to get DiVincenzo, Jason Hart. None of those guys were drafted there.
Yeah, no, they knew what they wanted. They knew what they wanted.
Isaiah Hartenstein. I mean, their whole, so it's a credit to, it's a credit to them. I think Boston is the maybe the exception where they drafted extremely well, got low picks, but that's credit Danny Ainge. He got Brown and Tatum with the 3rd picks. Basically first and second picks weren't nearly as good as those guys. Well, that was those teams' fault. They could have had those same guys.
Sure.
And then, then Brad Stevens, and they put together, players around those guys, basically.
It's pretty incredible to see what Brad Stevens did. He had success in the college game, but then he steps in as a coach, then steps back as a coach, runs, the front office basically, and the franchise. I mean, the fact that they got Drew Holiday, Jerry.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, I'll say this for Brad. I know him a little bit, and just such a nice person, but bright, and you just knew that. Kind of like a Danny Ainge. Of course, he's a Hoosier too, so you got to give him a little bit extra there. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact that he did coach, and you get a better appreciation of talent, what it takes, and then stepping into the front office, and he's done a great job. Getting Drew Holiday, I think getting Peyton Pritchard late in the draft, who's really developing.
He's good too. Yeah,
very, very good player. How about the trade to get White?
Yes, yes.
I mean, I'm convinced that that Coach Pop would like to have that one back with where they are right now. Because
no doubt
he's a perfect fit in with about any team. But so it's always to me the team builders are the guys that do it. Draft as best they can, trade as best they can, get a free agent where you can. And keep your own free agents. That's also
yes. Yes. And the Kings are right there. They're right at the crossroads right now. I mean, this is one of those big seasons. It's funny you brought up Derek White, because we're talking about the player votes. They had a poll in The Athletic. The players voted him, or at least the players that voted in this said he's the most underrated player in the NBA. And I kind of agree with it.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, he's right at a borderline all-star. I mean, you put Derek White on the Kings, they're good. You put him on the Kings, he makes you 2 or 3 games better. He really does, at least.
But do you think, Jerry, sometimes, and this is the last question, we'll get you out in a sec. Do you think sometimes those guys and their contributions get amplified because they're in a bigger situation with better players around them? Because you kind of see the same thing, or an argument being made with Monk. If he was to go to Charlotte or someplace where he's going to be the featured player, Derek White, do you think?
That's a great question. No, I think you're right. I mean, I think being at Boston, he's helped Boston, but Boston has helped him.
Yeah.
And I think, you look at Denver, Aaron Gordon is a good player. He'd be good anywhere, but he's better at Denver than he would be. I mean, Jokic gets him 5 baskets a game.
Absolutely.
He's not going to get that in Phoenix with Nurkic, for God's sake. Just as an example. And so, that's a big part of it. I mean, I would say it's like with Dallas, that they played poorly, especially Luka and Irving last night, which is rare. But I mean, they've made, guys like Gafford and PJ Washington and Derek Jones, they look, they're good players, but they look better in that system than they did where they came from.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny with the small market teams, it's like the Denver model. That's what you want to do. They did it the right way. It took some time. There was pressure to get the title, but they ultimately
patience with the coach, with the coach,
Yes.
And because he's a terrific coach, and they hung with him when, there's starting to be some rumbles, the old, kind of like, Phoenix and LA have done, or Milwaukee did last year. They get rid of Budenholzer, who's a terrific coach. And it's like, why? Or Terry Stotts in Portland, I always say, it's like, what did you think Portland should have done when he was there? They had terrific success. They weren't a championship team. And now look at you. You're no good.
Spot on. And I guess because you brought it up, last thing, and I promise we'll get you out on this, the Lakers job. Anything changed since we last spoke? You think they might go young JJ Redick? I've thought about Dave Yeager. He's due for another opportunity.
He's a good coach. I kind of hope they hire JJ Redick, because I'm kind of tired of crap. And, he seems to have all the answers. I don't think he knows the questions yet, but that's, I just don't think, that he's ready for that job personally. I think he should probably be an assistant coach somewhere for a few years. That'd be my guess. But actually what the Lakers should do, and I've said this, and a little controversial, but they need to make LeBron James the general manager and player coach. That's it.
Yes, I've been saying it too, Jerry. People think I'm crazy.
And then he can fire himself.
That'll never happen. That'll never happen. But that's the thing about LeBron. He's a great, but he doesn't like to be the fall guy. The coach is there to be the fall guy, Jerry.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the one thing. And obviously LeBron's one of the greatest, if not greatest players to ever live. There's no doubt about that. But I think that's where he's disappointed me in that realm compared to other greats at different times or current, where they didn't seem to think that they weren't responsible, generally speaking. I said, I played bad, or it's my fault, or we should, we'll win where I am, not that I got to go somewhere else. And, I think Durant's kind of got that way. And, maybe it's a sign of the times. I don't know. But, the Jordans and Birds of yesteryear and Elijah Wands and those guys, they just said, well, eventually I'll win where I'm at.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was a different time. You remember back in those days where Jordan took some heat for not speaking up enough on certain things publicly. And now it's on the other side of the spectrum with LeBron and the player movement. I mean, him and another group of players, I believe, are very much responsible for the power. I don't want to say swinging back to the players, but definitely being a little bit more in their court.
Well, yeah, and I kind of see some of it. I mean, certainly players should have the freedom. I just think it shouldn't be misused, and I think that's the case. But I think with Michael and Kobe and those guys, their concern was playing basketball. I mean, it's no different than a good lawyer focusing on his job, not really getting into areas that he didn't have expertise in. They kind of believed they were being paid large sums of money to be really good at basketball.
What a noble thought.
Yeah, I know it's strange, but stay in your lane. You hear that term, and I think that applies to most of us. If you're, it's certainly all right to have opinions about a lot of things, but I mean, if you're not really knowledgeable, maybe you shouldn't.
There you go. I don't disagree with that. But by the way, Jerry, I know you're not on there. Twitter gives everybody that platform now. You don't have to be knowledgeable. You can just get your
Oh
take out
no,
there.
no, that's not required at all. In fact, it probably, yeah, no, I know
Yeah.
with all these YouTube and different things, and I look at a lot of it. I don't get involved, but it's I enjoy it, and yet it's a little depressing at times.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, let's get you out on this. Where can everybody find more Jerry Reynolds if you're not on with us here on If You Don't Like That?
Well, I do a podcast with the King's Herald. It's a fan site for the Sacramento Kings. So I do one of those, and then I've been kind of going on Sacktown Sports Radio with
Sure.
Whitey Gleason occasionally, and then of course lately, since I'm not doing anything with Grant, I'm going to try to be with you on Tuesdays if I can.
Love it.
It's a good time for me, and so let's just. So hope that works for you, because generally I'm going to spend a lot of my time in Tahoe, but usually we kind of go up on Wednesdays and come back, spend a few days and come back.
Mhm.
We don't like the crowds.
I hear you.
I like people, except when I don't like people.
Jerry, I had somebody, I'm not trying to like make a joke out of this, but I'm starting to get recognized sometimes a little bit more in public because we've been doing for now 2 years, and I'm learning about the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things in this sense. I had somebody try to take a selfie of me in the bathroom. We like to talk basketball. We like to talk with fans, but not in the bathroom. There's a right way and a wrong way, right?
Yeah, I always say I don't mind, anybody. I enjoy talking basketball for taking pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
I always say that's an honor.
Absolutely.
Because at some point they won't have any interest or reason to do it. So I've never really thought that so-called celebrities should be offended by very much, unless they're, like say, take pictures of you in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird.
So there's a line. I don't think there's very many lines that would offend me, but like say in general, I consider it an honor that somebody would want to. I still get probably every week I'll get 2 or 3 cards to sign, from around the country, and even overseas. I've got a couple, which I told Mrs. Reynolds. I said, have you ever made out with an international celebrity? She said no. I said, well, look here, this guy from France wants my picture, so well, must be.
And then she said, "Can I see a sample of Grant's handwriting?"
Yeah. She wasn't quite ready yet. She's going to have more information, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it is officially Jerry Reynolds Tuesdays when you are not vacationing here on the King's Court. Kept you longer than 20 minutes, but it's just a great conversation, and everybody loves seeing you, Jerry. So thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed a chance to talk basketball. This works great for me. Hopefully it works great for you and fans.
Perfect.
So we'll see. So
let's do it.
Hey, good basketball coming up. So we'll see what happens. I think it's finally, it's into the stage now where it's good teams, and may the best team win, I guess.
Amen. And some new blood in there. That's what I like, especially in the Western Conference.
Yeah, really. I mean, seeing the Timberwolves and OKC, and I think that's Indiana. I think that's great that you got some not just good teams, but small markets, young teams.
Exactly. Good stuff, Jerry. Thanks so much for being here. We'll talk to you next Tuesday, huh?
Sounds good.
All right. That is Jerry Reynolds. How about that conversation? Look, I told you I had a bunch of content to go through. No, we're going to end on that. Doesn't get better than that. Bain, you are very, very welcome. I feel lucky to be able to get time with Jerry here on the King's Court like that. And he's an open book. That's why I say, if you guys have questions, then certainly send those over. We'll get to them. If you want to come up and say hi quick. Baki sent me a message, so that's why I saw that. But yes, we can do those things. And as you heard it, it is official. Jerry Reynolds Tuesdays here in the King's Court. Every week we will be doing those. So thank you so much for being here. We're going to get off a little bit early today. Grant will be back at 5 o'clock right here on If You Don't Like That, doing an open forum show. And then he and I are going to do a playoff post-game scrum open forum at 8 o'clock, just a little bit after the Knicks and the Pacers wrap up. Tadora, hit it.
Holy moly, Jimbaboli.
Love it. Make it a great day. Go Kings. Court is, I should say light the beam. I always say light the beam. Go Kings, light the beam. Court is dismissed.